All right. It is official. I think we gave it a good shot. We gave it a great try on Monday night for Help a Teacher live every Monday night, but we didn't pull it off. We thought were technical issues, and it turned out to be like user issues, as in me. But I've corrected time these platforms do an update. I think I know how to use it, but then I don't. All right, so man, I'm excited about this. We were coming to the end of the week. Thursday, I think it's Thursday. I lose track, man. Without being in a school and bells ringing and telling me where to go at what time, I can't keep track of the day. But I believe it's Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday, not Friday, but Friday, and then we have Saturday, Fatter Day, and Sunday, Fun Day, and I'm excited, man. So we're kind of wrapping it up. Thursday night always just feels good because I know the next day's Friday. I love it. All right, man. So let's get into this thing. So I did kind of I wasn't like a keynote, just kind of like a presentation for a leadership group up in the panhandle of Texas. And let me tell you something, man. You talk typically those kind of presentations. I'm just a little bit leery of anytime it's principals and superintendents and central office administrators. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of leery of it because, it kind of works in reverse order for me. Anytime I get to work with elementary teachers, they are all in. It is fun and games, and we're going to dress up like animals, and it's all going to be awesome. And then, in junior high, they're always crazy. And then high school teachers, sometimes you get the professors. And so, but when it comes to sometimes school leaders and central office administrators, that ain't the easiest crowd. But let me tell you something. These new friends of mine in Region 16 up in Amarillo, that whole panhandle area, what a bunch of really just engaged, compassionate school leaders who right now are working so hard to support their teachers in the most difficult time of education. This is a time unlike anything we have ever even imagined to be possible. And then in the face of this kind of challenge and struggle, our teachers and our administrators have stepped up to face the challenge and to answer the call with such passion and strength and courage and just determination. And just to chat with these folks for just an hour was awesome. And I met my new bestie for the breasty, Sara, honey. And she is passionate about helping teachers understand behavior and kids and what that story, and digging down into the behavior and finding out the story behind it. And I knew that I wanted you guys to meet her. So here we go, all the way from the panhandle of Texas, USA. Sara, how are you?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I make him laugh because these are my spirit fingers. I think that was one of the things he called me out in that session for,
That's
right?
well, I know that so far every time we've been either on a Zoom or here on the Be Live, anytime online, somehow, somewhere, spirit fingers always appear.
It brings you joy, though, right? It
It,
makes you smile. And right now, we have to smile.
and here it is, man. Like anytime we can have anything that just that it brings a visual emotion is what we need. Like I think teachers are really for some of our teachers who are teaching exclusively online or part online, part in class, I know they're feeling like they're just not able to connect with kids. But even though they don't feel it, oftentimes the kid feels it simply by that expression and the eye contact, and even on occasion some spirit fingers.
Love it. Love it. Yes, I agree. I always talk about, that playful situation. Spirit fingers, it always makes it playful. Eye contact and that touch. And touch is hard right now in this virtual world. So we've got to think smart. We've got to think creative. But that's where it's at. So
Yeah. Hey, listen, I want to get into kind of the history of what you have going on. And I know up there in the panhandle, that whole area that you guys serve is just dotted with little tiny towns. And when you were going up, when you were going to school, did you come from a small town?
yes. So the town that I live in right now, shout out to Claude, Texas, population. Last I checked, 1,313. I live there now, but that is where I went to school. And so I went to school. That's where my kids go to school now. And so, but I work in Amarillo. But yes, we service 62 districts for Region 16.
Hey, when you were going to school through Claude, I'm curious. Can you think back and I'm trying to calculate the size of the school district about how many kids are in a graduating class at Claude High School?
Okay, my graduating class, 24.
Oh my gosh! So the valedictorian and the salutatorian are the top 10% of the class. It's those two kids.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And
and
so
it's
when
funny
we
now, some people I went to school with, there's the counselor in Claude now. She's the principal in Claude. And we all come back because we love it so much. So,
That's what I always say, man. That's what I love. And kind of for whatever reason in my career, I have spent a ton of time working with teachers from smaller districts, more rural counties. And that's what I love about it because even though all those kids, they talk about the fact that when they're done here and when they graduate from their little school, they all talk about how they're going to move on, and some do. But you know what? At some point, the vast majority of them all come back. So teachers in those towns, they know they have such a personal, direct investment in the life of this kid. Because I know this kid right there, they can look at that kid and think that kid's going to be the State Farm agent, and that kid's going to be one of the two police officers we have in this town, and that kid is going to be delivering the mail. So they have such like that. That's what I love about those towns.
right. No, I agree. It's all about seeing the kid where they're at and how can I connect because it takes a moment and then that's where we get them invested and I love it.
Yeah. And so at what point when you were growing up did you have that first thought where you thought, you know what, man, I might be a teacher when I grow up?
Well, I always knew I wanted to help people, and so I thought I was going to be a nurse. I even went to college and I was going to be a nurse. And then we got into anatomy, and I can't handle blood, I can't handle cuts. And so I knew, and there were so many teachers in my life who had impacted me. You know, I do a lot of sessions for Region 16. I'm the behavior specialist, is one of my roles. And I always end in, think about your favorite teacher. Who was your favorite teacher? And I can name my favorite teacher right now. Maybe not so my favorite teacher, but who is one that has impacted me for the rest of my life? And mine was Mr. Minkley. And so I end my sessions and I think, who was yours? And then I think back, I think 20 years from now, you are teaching students, you are teaching future educators, and they could be in a session just like that and they could say your name as the teacher who impacted them.
It's powerful. I'll tell you real quick is I was speaking, I want to say this one was in Atlanta, Georgia. And it was a big hotel event that I hosted, a Teach Like a Rockstar event. And we are talking about the power of influence and how and the impact we make on kids. And asking who's been here, who's been teaching the longest. There was a lady there and she stood up and she had been teaching for over 40 years. She's a choir director, so she was teaching hundreds and hundreds of kids a year times 40 years, and the numbers were astounding, and we were calculating that, and it was just mind-blowing. And then a person stand up and he says, and I want you to know I've been teaching for 25 years and that's my choir teacher and that's why I teach. And it was so crazy, like, oh my gosh, they were sitting far apart. He hadn't seen her in that whole time. And then another person stood up and said, that was also my choir teacher. Then somebody else stood up and said, that guy that is her, that's my math teacher that I had 10 years ago. And it created like this network in this conference. It was mind blowing. And so I think sometimes in the larger districts, we don't think we have that close of an impact, but we really do. Like that teacher web of the relationship between teacher and student is
Mhm.
so powerful.
No, I agree. I know I taught in a big district. I didn't teach in Claude. I taught in Amarillo. And at one of my campuses that I taught at, so I taught second grade, third grade, and fifth grade. And I had this sweet girl. And she was one that I just connected with because so say during guided reading, I would say, tell me what's going on. Tell me about your family. And, we would talk about, her dad was in prison and we made those moments within the day. And sometimes I had planned it, like I got to check in, but then sometimes it was just natural. But let me tell you, when I became an administrator, that mom sent me a Facebook message and she says, I just want you to know how much you have touched my daughter's life. And I have her picture hanging up in my office if we were in my office, and not COVID, right? I have her picture and I have that email. And that was 4 years ago. Well,
Yeah.
then this summer, her mom sent me another message, and it was this girl. Her name was Jada, and she was writing about the teacher who touched her life the most. And she wrote about me. Talk about like, that's the reason we do it. It's
Yeah.
so much more than math and reading. All those things are important, but we're building connections. We're creating adults to be amazing. And we have that power right now in our classrooms.
I love the fact that, for me, it was I got to the point in my classroom where, delivering the content was just kind of something I had to do. I mean, I was there for the relationship. I was there for the fun and talking about life and just having a blast with the kids. And I think because we had that kind of relationship with our family in the classroom, that is why, we were pretty effective at stuffing some knowledge into that
Mhm.
kid's noggin because of all the other stuff that we were doing. And I'm wondering, at what point in your career did you become fascinated and really passionate about digging down into the why behind these kids' behaviors?
No, I don't. I know there you can teach teachers to see the little things and all that. You can absolutely teach them. So I don't know if that's something or if I just always was that way, but I was that teacher who for whatever reason had those hard kids. And it was like my administrator would do it on purpose, right? But I look back and it's because those kids, they meant so much to me. It was like that was the reason that I would come to work every day, because I was going to break down that wall. I was going to break down that barrier, because whatever trauma that kid had faced, like I was going to be the person for them. So those kids were my why. And so then my passion now is all about seeing behavior differently, because just like I did in the classroom, behavior is a form of communication. They're telling us something. They're telling us that they don't feel safe. They're telling us that something's not right, whatever that is. So that's why I hope through me continuing to be a teacher, I will be a teacher for the rest of my life, right? How you will be a teacher for the rest of your life. And so now I'm just teaching adults. And my hope is that they learn to see behavior differently. It's a cry for help, and they're asking, help me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think for me, that whole approach is what separate. There's a few things that separate the truly extraordinarily great teachers from everyone else, and that is one of the key ingredients right there. Is at some point those great teachers that are astounding to watch in the classroom, they have such an innate ability, and maybe it's not innate, maybe it's a learned ability. I'm sure that's possible, where they truly understand at the point of frustration and the point of anger and all those hard to handle behaviors. They immediately know, okay, I need to figure out the why behind this behavior. What is this kid telling me?
Right? Because if we don't figure out the why, we can't break the cycle of escalation. When we're thinking about, we have teachers in the classroom, and it is hard. And they have students who are, whether that's they are reaching that peak of behavior, whether throwing chairs, ripping things off bulletin boards, whatever that looks like. If we don't figure out the why, the root, what is it that they need? What are they missing? Because we know when a kid is in their survival state, which is, that amygdala, your brain stem, fight, flight, or freeze. And so there's nothing, I've got to get to that. How can I help them feel safe?
Yeah. For me, I know it's for people that aren't in the classroom, there's no way they could understand it. So, I give them a ton of grace, but anytime there's a viral video of a kid having a meltdown, a child having a meltdown, and I mean, you see these horrible comments, and here's a child just throwing books and dumping over desk and going, and and they get all the kids out of the room, and they're trying, and they're having that moment. And by the way, when I talk about children, yeah, that kid might be 7, the kid also might be 16, still a child. And I feel a sense, I don't know, I just it's sadness for me when people comment as if that's an adult. That kid needs to control themselves. Look, man, that kid is a child. They're doing the very best we
Mhm.
can. And then I also start thinking, oh my goodness, what kind of heartbreaking story does that kid have that that is the impulse for that behavior?
Right. And you know that the statistics are crazy. And I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but the last thing I saw was, 50% of our kids who come into public education or school, 50% of them have experienced trauma. When you're talking about kids from trauma, it rewires their brain. And so you're literally it processing is a little slower sometimes. The way that they react and respond, like we have to be that trauma, we have to build that resilient classroom that teaches them safety. You are safe in this environment no matter what's happening outside. And sometimes I hear that, with teachers, well, this is happening, what can you control right now? You have them from 8 to 9 if it's departmentalized. You have them from 8 to 3:30. You have them right now. And I know, Hal, you were talking about the amount of time that teachers truly have them.
Yeah. We were talking about earlier today on your podcast, we were talking about years ago, this is back in 1990, the research was that on average, kids spend about 7 minutes of direct interaction with a parent. And that's in 1990. I can't even imagine what it is now with technology, not just for the kid, but for the parent getting locked onto the phone and emotionally engaged in their phone more than the kid. I think about that, and then I think about even in the classroom, even in a high school classroom where you have a kid for 48 minutes, that's it. I promise you, that time is so that we can be such an influential force in the life of that kid more than any other adult. And I just relish in that opportunity that teachers have to be the most influential adult in the life of the kid.
I agree. And I think though it has to start with composure. Because right now we are living in a world that is crazy with COVID, with election, with all of it. It feels everybody feels stressed, everybody feels tense. And think about this. Whenever you're having a bad day, I always like to use the analogy. You wake up, your alarm didn't go off or whatever. You walk into the school building, you drop your coffee. How do you feel? You feel like this. So then you go into the classroom and you're still feeling like this. And guess what? That's how our kids are going to feel. And so we have to figure out how we as the adult can stay composed, because if we're not composed, if we're not calm, if we're not bringing the spirit fingers to what we do, then our kids cannot break that feeling.
Yeah. It's such a for whatever reason, for me, it's so easy to see the challenge of being a kid right now. And so here's the thing with all the craziness that we have to deal with. Think about as an adult, as a teacher. Yes, we have COVID, we have upcoming elections, we have the news cycle of, the what's going on both campaigns, and we have fires and we have racial inequities and inequalities and injustices and all that's going on across the nation, and we feel stressed and we understand that. Here's the thing. Kids feel that, but they have no idea. They don't understand the why. We get the why. They just have the feeling without knowing why they feel that way. And then when they get to the classroom, it can be this tiniest thing, a simple eye roll, the teacher. "Ugh." And when the kid's already in that state, the tiniest thing can break a kid. Yeah. And
You're
set them off
exactly
in
right. And
some aggressive behavior for sure.
absolutely. And so that's the thing is, and this is one thing I said. My son right now, he's in home. He's in quarantine, and the feeling of how often we cry in a day. It's insane, and it's not that he's not able academically. It's the stress, and that's the thing that you were saying. Kids feel the stress, but they don't know how to express that. They don't know how to use the words of this doesn't feel good until the adult teaches them how to use those words. And yes, this doesn't feel good. And it's okay to be angry. But when you're angry, and that's the same thing in the classroom when the kid blows, is it's okay to be angry. Being angry, there's nothing wrong with that. But this is how we handle ourselves when we're angry. We breathe, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And so
You know,
we got to
because
think about
sometimes I
kids
see
for
we
sure.
man, on occasion, I'll still see, unfortunately, where an educator is really locked in to that the ideology where they want the kid to be submissive and just do what I tell you in the moment of the kid being angry because I said so, like that whole thing. And for a kid right now being just 50% or have been emotionally, physically somehow traumatized. And then with all that's going on in our country, and then just the stress of school. And then, quite honestly, so many classrooms are just not a natural fit for some kids. The idea of sitting all day in rows and columns, I have to stare at the back of this kid's head for how long? I mean, the whole thing is just unnatural. And man, it's really like I feel like I get it, man. Like I
Right.
totally get it. The kids for kids that really struggle.
Right. And so, one thing I want to share with teachers is, I had a friend on my Facebook page the other day, and she was asking for advice. And she says, I don't want to debate, but I have a kid who's in junior high or high school, and she has anybody heard about if we're having basketball, right? Because we're in the time where whether you're quarantined or you're not, there's some sports that are shutting down because if school's not in set, whatever that is. And she said, I don't know what to tell her. She's asking me all these questions and I don't have the answers. And so my advice to her is there's so much of the unknown that we can't tell them and we don't want to tell them because if we tell them at the wrong thing, that's going to create more stress. But what I tell them is, what can you control now? So you're worried about basketball season, but right now you can control you. So you can go out there, you can practice, you can shoot those free throws. That's what you have control over. And so we've got to teach our kids in this moment, it feels crazy, but what can I control now?
Yep. I think because we tend to think that these are such heavy abstract concepts that the younger kids won't understand it. But man, I'm here to tell you, like sometimes we underestimate their level of understanding when it's presented in a simple, easy to understand way.
And I know as a parent, I want to protect him. And so I don't tell him. I have a 4-year-old who's in quarantine now and he's in pre K and he doesn't understand if he gets to go to Halloween or not. And I could dismiss that and kind of, push it to the side because I don't know the answers to it. Or I could just be real and just
Yep.
be transparent and say, son, I don't know, but I do know we can get a costume and I do know you're going to wear it around the house, but I don't know what's going to happen in a couple weeks, buddy.
Yep. I think that's it, and I know kids get tired of that, and it's okay. They should get tired of that. You're a kid. You should get frustrated about not having Halloween. Like, that's a real thing, man. I mean, you only get a few of those in your life that count, 7 or 8 of them. The first ones don't count because you're not aware of anything. The older you don't count. It's like a handful that count. I get it. Missing out on one is a huge deal. And like with like Donna, talking about that's the hardest part for me. She says not having answers for my kids and their parents. That is so big. And the truth is, the vast majority of teachers, Donna, I'm not saying this is true about you. I'm just saying for lots of teachers, they love to have the answer. They love the control. That's why they became a teacher because they want to change a kid's life. And you can't do that if you don't have clarity and understanding and control. I get it. But there is power in what you're saying, Sarah, that just being absolutely completely honest and authentic and I don't know is okay when we follow it with, but I do know this. I love your kid. I am not giving up on the school year. I'm not giving up on this class. I'm sure as heck not giving up on your kid. I love your kid. I'm so thankful they're in my life. When we can follow our I don't know with the truth like that, I think that does ease some parents' minds.
And I agree. And I think it's important too for, teachers to remember and to think through is we could easily go into this downward negative spiral easily because, administration saying this and then 20 minutes later they say this because nobody knows the answers. And so my other big deal is grace and mercy. Like we
Yeah.
have got to have some grace and mercy and we've got to teach our kids that. And like you said, I don't know the answer, but I'm here. I'm a phone call away. I'm an email away. And I am with you. We're in it together. We can handle this.
Yeah. I think that that's true. especially for our district leaders, and working with superintendents, that is crushing to them because they know in terms of leadership, it's absolutely critical that they have ideas in place and they're clearly defined and everyone understands the mission and the vision and they get all that set in stone. And then the very next day, the CDC comes down with a whole new and so what they just communicated everything to the community, and now none of that is going to happen. We're changing everything. And this is a time where you're right. It needs grace and compassion from everybody for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. We can handle this. That's what I tell them. We can do it one step at a time. There was a quote I saw. I'm not focusing on the whole staircase. I'm focusing on the step in front of me.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, because that is such a huge shift for me as an educator because I think, going into a school year, I've got it. I know I've done it I've done it for 30 years. I know exactly what's going to happen when and where and I know the big picture. I know how we're going to finish this thing. I know, but this year you don't know anything. I just know what we're doing today.
Mhm.
And I'm going to make today amazing. I promise
Right.
you. We're going all in today. It's going to be phenomenal, whether it's in my classroom or in my class Zoom. Like Donna again. Look at Donna,
Woo.
superstar. I know honors. She talked like says she seriously enjoyed virtual because I've developed some awesome relationships. I can't tell you how many teachers I've talked to where they've said in confidence to me that I've built relationships with kids I have never connected with, but online, they'll be eye to eye with me right there in the little hole on their laptop, staring back and forth at me, where they wouldn't even get their head off the desk in the classroom. And just the fact that it's the silver linings like that that have just it's fueled my soul.
Right. And I believe, like what Donna said, is we are hardwired for connections. And I know whenever we get in the hustle and the bustle of life and of teaching and of content and everything, we can't skip connections because that is the basic, that's the base of our pyramid. Like relationships, relationships, relation. I could scream it from the rooftop.
Yeah. And I think, I think we're getting closer to the reality of that now more than ever. It seems that with the more adversity with which we are faced, the more understanding we gain of the value and the critical need to establish that relationship and have that firmly rock solid in place. So it's upon that foundation that we can build our lessons and teach like that. People think, oh my gosh, this relationship thing, this component is just one more thing I have to add on I have to add on, put another thing on my plate. I'm like, no, this is the plate. This is the plate upon which you're going
Right.
to
This
serve
is it.
everything. Yes.
Yep. And here, secondary, high school, sometimes they're like, well, my kids don't buy, they will buy into it. If the teacher buys into it, they will buy into it. And I always say, you've got to be willing to look like a complete fool in front of your kids, right?
Yeah.
You've got to be, you can make mistakes, you can say something that's crazy, but that's where like that human laughter comes in and that, we're all in this together.
Yeah. Here's the thing in my work and when I'm shifting school culture at a secondary campus like a high school, the secret behind my work, and I would never say it there. My secret behind that work is
I'm writing it down.
I'm trying to get this school to run like an elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Such
and people don't
joy.
bel- man, the kids will buy it. I don't care if they get 17 with a beard and a tattoo on his face. Listen, if you don't believe me, like all I ask teachers to do to authentically go deep and have take a moment on a Friday, every 10 minutes on a Friday, and do show and tell. Just do show and tell like you did in third grade. I promise you, you'll see juniors and seniors crying over a card they brought from their grandmother's funeral. And they're doing show and tell. It's powerful. Like the more we can connect with, like elementary teachers do, the deeper and the better we can, more effectively we can teach at the secondary level.
I agree. And a lot of people say, we don't have time for that. But you're going to make so much more time up because they're going to be the second they walk in that classroom, their eyes are going to light up. They know that this is the safe place. this school family right now, this classroom family, I feel safe and I'm already in it. I don't have to worry about getting kids engaged and all those things. You gain so much academic time when you start there with relationships first.
Yeah, anytime I had a new principal, I'd always have to train my principal. I have to educate him on my teaching style. And I said, "Hey, listen, the when the school year starts, you're going to freak out because you're going to be worried I'm not teaching. I promise you, we're going to make up for that. So you might see my class in the hallway. We're going to be outside. We'll be in the cafeteria. We won't be in the classroom at first, but we're going to get there. We haven't earned the right to get in there, but I promise you, and you're going to get nervous thinking, what is this guy doing? I promise you, I'm going to make this huge investment up front, which is going to pay off dearly every day for the rest of the school year, rather than paying for it, with every day with
Mhm.
behavior issues and who knows what else. But if I can build that family up front
Mhm.
and invest a lot of time for the first week or two, man, life is awesome.
But here's a big misconception though sometimes is there's so much people sometimes they go so one way or the other, and so I'm really all in and I'm going to build this family, but it has to come, you have to still be assertive and you still have to have those expectations, because I like how where you were talking about what did you do when the kids started being ugly to each other and disrespectful. What did you do?
Man, we're not we lost our right to go into our family room. Like
Mhm.
we can't disrespect and disgrace our classroom with this relationship that we have in place. We're rude to each other. We cannot do that in there. So what I would do is I lock the door. We're not going in. We're going to the cafeteria. We'll sit in the closet. We'll go to the hallway. Go underneath the stairwell. It doesn't matter. But we're not going in our classroom or where we have family, because we haven't earned that right. And so we'll talk about it. We'll get back on place, and we'll have an open discussion about what's going on and what caused it. Sometimes there's some issues there. Sometimes it's me, and whatever it
Mhm.
is, we're gonna work it out, and then we're gonna go back into the classroom where we've earned the right now to be a family again.
It's such an honest environment, the way you say it, and how you said, it could be me because we have, it is sometimes I'll be the one, like even with my family, I'll be the one who sets them off. And so I have to reflect of what could I have done differently in that moment because I lost it. And then I'll go to them and I'll apologize. I'm sorry. It was me. I was short tempered. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, more than a few times, it's me. I get caught up. I think we all do. That's the thing. Teaching is such an emotional job, and it's filled with emotion. And I might, step on someone's feelings. I don't know. Like, I got 32 kids in this room. It's very likely one of them will take whatever I say, whatever I do, whatever gesture I make in a way that I didn't intend it, but I still got to own it. And yeah, on occasion, it's my fault for sure, but we're going to fix it, be honest about it, and talk about our feelings. I'm going to apologize. We get right back into learning.
Ooh, I love what Amanda just said. I can see it. You are so right. It's that social emotional piece that so often gets overlooked. I love it. I love it. And the other thing though is how can I embed everything I do to build that in everything I do? Am I
Yeah.
having morning meetings? Am I having I love you rituals, brain smart starts to get them going and to connect? And when my class starts getting crazy, I stop it and let's do a connection. Let's all get back on track.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I take the first couple of weeks like so scientifically serious, where what I do, like even proximity. And my last few years were spent in a secondary environment. And what I did, even like the first day the kids came in, I have the desks as far apart from each other as they possibly can be. And then every day I give them like an inch closer. Like I mapped this out in my room. So after school, when they're not there, I
I
move them a
love
little bit
that.
closer. It's these tiny, tiny, tiny little things. And over time, I'm able to increase eye contact and increase, and back when you could, high five and fist bump and hug kids and all that, like it would just a little bit over time and increase because that's kind of like I know I talk about the classroom family, but that doesn't happen day one. We have to like build up to that, and like you said, build safety and trust and honesty and understanding and acceptance in this room. And so it's those tiny little things I plan out each day on how we start class, how we finish class, our send off. It's all those things that really bring a classroom together.
Because all those moments matter, because I think about it. You had said this earlier. I can't make a kid do anything. So often it's like, well, he needs to get out of the room. Well, I can't physically make a kid do anything, but by building a relationship, they're more willing
Yeah.
and they have that self control. And that's a hard pill to swallow because you think like in my classroom it's going to look like this, it's this perfect world, and it can be, but it will blow up in your face. It blows up in the best teachers faces, and so it's just, what's my battle, or what am I willing to give? If relationships my focus, that's where I plant my feet.
Yeah, it is. You know, we're dealing with human beings and the fact that they're children. And then depending on the age, and their body chemistry is changing, and they're trying to figure out what it is to become a young man and become a young lady, and they're experimenting with control issues and pushing boundaries, which in the fact that I think, people look at that as a bad thing, but man, like, I wanna be a part of that in their life. I wanna be the one there when they're going through that stage, because to me, it's just so fun. It's funny to see this child, he's 11. What do I care what he says to me? It's hilarious, and I just love that these kids have adults in their life who unconditionally love them. They love them relentlessly, even in their worst moments.
I love it. And the other thing I always try to remind teachers, okay, so get a Q-tip from your bathroom, right? Take that Q-tip and hang it up in your classroom somewhere where you can see it, because Q-tip, quit taking it personal, because most often behavior isn't about us. It's usually rarely, yes, sometimes we can impact it. So often it's what that kid's going through and they don't know how to handle it. So Q-tip it. How can I help right now?
Yeah. We talked about that earlier today, and, like, I think it's because it was such painful, harsh lessons I had to learn as a first year teacher, second year teacher, and then, yeah, like I said earlier today, like I'm only good at a few things in terms of teaching, but one of them is not taking it personally. Like, it's a child, man. He's doing the best he can, and of course he responds that way.
Mm-hmm.
With all the kid has going on,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll tell you real quick is, when my, I think I have a book coming out in a couple of months. I wrote a book with Dr. Brad Johnson. He's over on Twitter, and, we wrote a book called Dear Teacher, and it's just tiny little thoughts, ideas, and stories, and I think this one's in the book. Is when I was, first year teacher, I was, having a screaming match with a kid, because that's what I did as a first year teacher,
You
and
pick
I
up the
screamed
rope every time.
scream back and forth with children. And I was just so angry. And it was a Friday afternoon. And I'd always work really late. And I left, it was a tiny town. I left school early. I'm in the parking lot, and the principal sees me. I want to beat the buses out. It's Friday. And he waves at me and he goes, "Hey, man, you're out of here early." I said, "Yeah, dude, it was like a horrible day." And he's coming over and he says, "Tell me about it." So I'm going to tell him about this kid, how horrible he is. This kid's a mess. He's terrible. He goes, "Yeah, man, I understand how you feel." And the principal goes around, he gets in the passenger seat of my car, and he goes, drive out of the school parking lot. I want to show you something. Tell me more about that kid. And I'm just going on how rude he is, and it's just repulsive. And listen, everything that's wrong with this kid. And the principal says, "Here, take a right and keep driving." And so we're maybe 200 yards from the school. He goes, "Pull over here." And he goes, and I look up, he goes, "Pull in this driveway." And I look up, and it is this, it wasn't a mobile home. It wasn't, I don't know, it was a hand built, some sort of a shack type thing with like a shower curtain for a door. I remember, like, there was trash piled up in the yard, and there was this pathway that had been carved out through it. and I never seen any poverty like this. I mean, dogs chained to trees. There's like rusted cars on their side, and he says, "This is where that kid lives." And I'm looking at this, and he says, he goes, based on all the kid has to deal with at home, I'd say he's doing pretty good at school. And like that changed everything for me.
Your whole perspective when we
Because I,
see them and see where they come from. And I think that's why when we invest that time, I don't remember who said it, Amanda, maybe in those first 2 weeks, when we learn, like if you would have learned that about that kid in those first 2 weeks, how would your entire way you handled him possibly have changed? You would have given him grace, right?
yeah, yeah, and then, it was that, and maybe 2 years later, I taught at another school where, Dr. Ana Lopez was the principal, and we all showed up for the first day of staff development. I was a brand new teacher on staff, and this was at a intermediate school, and the doors were locked. And it said, and this is in the summer. This is in August, man. And it's hot. And she said, just wait here. I'll be here at like 8:15 or whatever. And at 8:15, she pulled up on a school bus. Her husband was driving a school bus. She says, all right, get on board. Let's go meet your kids. I'll show you where they live. And so we went from house to house. And again, the poverty was shocking. She would show us, she says, okay, do you see that house with the flag on it? That flag in this neighborhood means that they have the tool the city uses to turn the water back on. So if your water gets turned off, you can go talk to them and they'll get your water turned on for you. And that, you see that extension cord going across the street, they're getting powered over at that house. And she went through this whole thing. And so the whole point was, at the end of the morning, she's like, so when you give your kids homework in the fifth grade, just remember that's the home where they're trying to work.
Right. And I think it's not about feeling sorry for that. It's sympathy versus empathy, right?
Yeah.
Because when I have sympathy, it's like, oh yeah, poor kid. But when I have empathy, like I see their life for what it is, and I'm on that level. And I'm not here to like give them advice. I'm here to help them. Like we can do this together. Like we're doing it. Let's do this together. And it's hard. And I know it's hard when you go home, buddy. But you're here with me right now, and you're safe.
That feeling right there of just connection and together and letting kids know, man, I've got you. You're one of mine. And by the way, not just this year, since you're in my classroom family, you're one of mine forever. And yeah, like, and that's what I love. And letting kids know, that's what I love about this classroom family. When you walk through that door, I've got you and you got me.
Right. Love it. I want to
Yeah.
do something though, Hal, because a lot of people are saying, they're lacking the ideas of Q-tip. I've got to be honest. I didn't come up with these ideas, right? No teacher comes up with their ideas.
None of us do.
I'm stealing, borrowing, begging, and cheating. And so it's like, I don't know. One thing that I've learned about 3, 4 years ago, I had the privilege to work under an amazing principal, Amy Barragon. I'm going to shout out to her. She brought conscious discipline to our school. And it truly is about changing the adult first. And I'll tell people all these ideas, all these things, it's really made me a better mom. It's made me a better teacher. It's made me a better wife. But so all these ideas, I got to be honest, they're not for me.
Man, I'll tell you that, that's the funny thing about writing this book. Like, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I mean, I'm going to write this, but I know it ain't original. Like, I'm thinking, I have no idea who I stole this from. But so I think we're about to find out. Yeah. And then, the other thing is, yeah, man. Our star pupil Donna today, our student, she's actually the teacher. We think we became the students. All the knowledge bombs she's dropping. Yeah, man. That's it. Empathy requires action. That empathy, in my mind, I think of empathy. I'm thinking of effort. Sympathy. Oh, that's a shame. But I didn't take any effort. But empathy really, it takes work. It takes work. The work required to put myself in that kid's, what is that kid feeling in the space of that kid's emotion. And again, man, like that's one of the things between the great teachers I've seen in classrooms. When I'm walking down the hall and I'm watching some teacher going, oh my gosh, that is an American hero right there. That's there. There's a room filled with active empathy rather than just
Right.
sympathy.
And it truly starts with understanding. So, say a kid broke his pencil and he loses it, right? But we have to understand their perception is their reality. So, in that moment, that was the biggest, and so that's with empathy. We are understanding that whatever they're thinking is this big deal, it's a big deal to them. And
Yeah.
so, I'm going to value that and I'm going to come up to them and I'm going to say, "You seem real frustrated. How can I help? What can I do?"
Yeah.
So,
Awesome, man. Hey, listen, thank you so much for hanging out. I know you and I spent some time together today with your podcast this morning and this afternoon. It's been awesome. I really, really appreciate you. I love all that you talk about and all that you share with your teachers in Region 16 up in the Panhandle. I love that they have you in their lives.
I am thankful. I'm thankful. I want to speak behavior into everybody because no kid wakes up in the morning saying, you know what, I'm going to be a turd today. That's not what it's about. They're crying for help. Help me. It just doesn't come out like that usually, right? And so that's my passion. And so thanks for having me. I hope maybe one thing I always say after every session, if you can just take one thing, then I won today. So I hope somebody can take one thing from this. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, and we'll connect soon. Thank you so much. Your
Bye.
fingers, there they are.